So just a quick update to memorialize these two wine these two wines. Yesterday's Chateau Chanticleer Chanticleer was really great at first, and then as it evolved and it opened up and decanted, it got way better. 5 out of 5. More layers of flavor jumped in. It was really hard to believe. It stayed in that medium plus range the whole night. It was solid, but more aromas, more flavor compounds on the palate. It was just awesome. And with steak, it was fantastic. It definitely paired really well with a beef protein. Great wine. Unbelievably great wine. And really what Bordeaux could strive to be is this: don't get overly huge and powerful, although Pauillac does tend to have powerful reds, and it was medium plus in power and intensity. It wasn't over the top. Number 2 is this Barolo. I just opened it. I did the Corbin the other day. This 2019 Gianfranco Alexandria, and also 14%. This Barolo for $35 is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Really probably just as good as the GD Vajra, maybe better. This has all sorts of layers of flavor, even a little bit of cinnamon on it, a little bit of baking spice, but it's got it. Pairing it today with a dish with a tomato-based sauce and tomato-based meat sauce, and God, it with food, it's even better. Just accentuates the whole meal, and the red meat sauce, fantastic. So 2 really great wines at very varying price points. You're talking about 100 plus, and then this is, I think this was 35. So definitely will be buying more of this Barolo for sure. 2019 vintage, I'm pretty sure. I know at a Brunello Tuscany, it's probably they're calling it vintage of the decade or century, whatever. Doesn't matter. A grade vintage at a Tuscany. Now this is not Tuscany, it's Piedmont. I'm not sure if Piedmont is as highly rated in 2019. Ratings aside, this wine's awesome. So bottom line is that I think with the vintage ratings, and I do prefer to look at vintage ratings than wine ratings, because I just believe in these tastings with professional tasters. Not that they haven't all the criteria and the background and the knowledge to do these tastings, but they're doing it so quickly, spans of seconds. They're not sitting down with a wine for hours that I'm aware of. They could never do that with the volume of wines that they're rating. So when you sit down with a wine like the Chateau, that wine evolved. At first it was great, then it became amazing. It just took 2 hours, 3 hours to get there. It also just means it probably needs a little bit more time in bottle to age, where then it'll be a little bit more elegant when it's cracked open than needing to decant it as long as I did, and I just drank it over the course of the night. I did finish the bottle, but it was many, many hours later. I really watched it evolve hour after hour after hour, which is why I decant wine, and I've seen some things, oh, decanting wine's crap, but I watched it in numerous wines, the evolution, especially a younger wine, what it can do, with just some age, what it can do. A super, super, super old wine is so fragile, you probably don't want to decant it for that many hours. You probably want to drink it maybe right out of the bottle, or decant it and drink it very quickly, because it's already fragile and it's already been aging for such a long time. But that was a 2018 Bordeaux. That's a baby. That is a baby. So 2019 Barolo, it's a baby. So as this decants, or as this sits in the glass, it's going to evolve as the oxygen hits it. Most of these are made very reductively, where there's no oxygen allowed, or there's limited amount of oxygen. So when oxygen hits it, different flavor compounds, different aromas will pop out of the glass. So, which is a good thing. Which is why I absolutely believe in decanting, and I like having a really flat bottom decanter, really spread that wine surface area. This doesn't decant. Sometimes like someone's like, oh no, let me pop it open. No, it's not getting any air. There's nothing. It's barely touching. You really want to spread that surface. It's ready to decant. Any container works. Doesn't have to be super fancy, but and unfortunately some of the ones that are flat like that are a pain in the ass to clean. So there's always that. So still haven't found the perfect decanter, but once I do, maybe I'll share that in a subsequent video. So these two wines, awesome. I think I was trying to make another point, I just forgot, but it doesn't really matter. Oh, about scoring and vintage ratings. I stick more to vintage ratings than I do ratings from a specific wine, but with a caveat. Anything 90 or above in a vintage rating, I'm good with. Now, if I see a 98.99 vintage rating, okay, that might grab my attention. If I see 80s, low 80s, that means it was probably a very rainy year, and when they harvested, it probably rained around harvest, or the grapes weren't ripe enough. I will avoid that, because I have seen some wines that just, the overall quality will be lower. So it's not so much that I'm like, okay, this is a 91, 92, I got to get the 14, not the 13. Never. I would buy both. I don't even care. Probably doesn't even matter. It's a wash. But if I see an 82 ranked vintage versus a 92 ranked vintage, that could change my opinion on which vintage to buy. That's a big disparity. But anything 90 or above, I think is fine. If I see something 97, 98 or above, then it's okay. Might grab my attention. Like the Barolo 2019s, I think are getting like something like a 98, 99 rating across the board. Just some outrageous scores. Just some outrageous scores. I think 23, I'm almost positive 23 Napa's getting some outrageous scores. Napa's only had 2 lousy vintages in the last 20 years. 2011 and then 2017, I'm calling it lousy, wasn't even lousy. And unfortunately, you had the fire year. There was a lot of the fires and a lot of smoke taints. So I avoid that year in wine just because I think that was 2020 vintage a lot of times. I avoid that one, not because I just maybe don't. Winemaking a lot of times is a for-profit business. And if they're just going to say, oh, screw it, just put it in bottle, who cares what it tastes like? I know a lot of wineries threw all those grapes out, threw that juice out, which was smart. It was smart, but I can't say that everybody did. So I think I avoided a lot of wines in that vintage, only because of the fires, though. I think some wineries picked before the fire. That's different, but you'd have to know that. You'd have to know that. So, way longer on this couch than I expected. I feel like I say that a lot. But 2 great wines. I think really I've just lately my palate's been going to Barolo, Barbaresco, so Nebbiolo, and then back to Bordeaux. I think I read an article recently, let's say it was Mind Spectator Decanter, one of the two, just talking about Bordeaux kind of on the downswing. The 2023 prices are way down, 30% lower than 22. Number one, it got a crap vintage score, like in the 80s, like I was just talking about. But they also realized people aren't buying as much Bordeaux as they used to. The Asian markets kind of declined, the US markets declined, so they're trying to get it back up by really reducing these prices. But I guarantee next time they have a 95 ranked vintage, right back up, because that just seems to be the trend. Now, if that doesn't happen, and they keep these prices where they're at. Now, Pontet Canet is $80, which I just saw. The 2023 Pontet is like $80. Hasn't been $80 since 2000 and I don't even know, 4, 3, and then 2005 jumped up to 125. Went up since, kind of dropped a little bit because there was a few okay vintages, but we shall see. We shall see. So that's sort of my overview on. I talk about vintage scores a lot, but I wanted to put it to context. It's really just that specific. Where it's super low, I avoid. If it's within a few points, doesn't matter. Then if it's super high, as long as the prices are okay and not getting overinflated, I'll buy a bunch from that, sit on them 3 to 5 years, and then partake. Have a good night.